Rick Perry got booed at the last Republican presidential debate when he correctly, but foolishly, accused his audience of not having a heart if they opposed his Texas version of the DREAM Act, which allows undocumented students who've attended Texas high schools to pay in-state tuition rates in the Texas university system. That booing at the debate has now turned into heckling on the campaign trail, where Perry's facing signs saying Rick Perry supports illegal immigrants and Rick Perry endorsed by Mexico. Even though Rick Perry entered the presidential race late, he was still obviously not yet prepared for the national limelight, even though, according to my next guest, Rick Perry is the permanent candidate. Joining me now is Alec McGillis, a senior editor at The New Republic and the author of the magazine's current cover story, The Permanent Candidate, What's Driving Rick Perry. Thanks for joining me tonight, Alec.
Thanks for having me.
Your article takes us through Rick Perry's history as the permanent candidate. There's a lot of vivid moments in it, including the one that's getting a lot of attention where when someone tries to explain policy to him, he says, don't bother, I wouldn't understand it anyway.
Right.
Is that typical of Perry's approach to policy?
It is. This is not someone who is overly concerned with policy, somewhat like his predecessor in Texas, George Bush. What I really found in my piece for The New Republic was really that this is a man who's not really driven by ideology. As much as he's been made out to be a hardened right-wing ideologue by a lot of people right now, that's not really the way that people in Texas look at him or have come to understand him. This is a man who's really kind of driven by his own ambition, his own desire to climb the ladder, less than by any kind of coherent political philosophy. And so, in occasions like that where someone will come to him and want to hash out the details of something, he said, yeah, just don't bother about it. It was actually kind of candid in a way for him to be that open about his disinterest in that.
You quote someone as saying, working close to him, says he can switch colors to whatever he needed to be at any time. One of the colors that he has switched is lately, as he's gone from being very interventionist in the economy, socialistic ideas that economists sometimes call industrial policy. He's created these entities, government entities in Texas that funnel money into the private sector to support favored industries in different ways. That is what Michelle Bachmann is calling crony capitalism, because a lot of the beneficiaries of those deals turn out to be, in your reporting, contributors to Perry campaigns.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of states do this kind of economic development stuff where they give big incentives to companies to come to their states. It's sort of a race to the bottom, really. Texas, though, takes it a step further. They give a lot more money, and there are a lot fewer controls on the money they give. And the fact is that a lot of the people who've gotten this money from these two funds in Texas have been major contributors of Governor Perry. He's been remarkably brazen about it, actually. You almost have to hand it to him. He's been so forthright about it and kind of unabashed about giving money to big companies and startup companies backed by major contributors, including two people who gave him a $1 million loan in 1998 when he was running for lieutenant governor, a loan that he got in the last week of the campaign that basically put him over the top in that very close race. And that was the race, of course, that put him in position to become governor 2 years later. So it's really kind of a big enterprise that he's had going for himself, where you've got the money coming in the form of campaign contributions, and then the money going out, it's taxpayer money going out from these funds or through other channels to people who have backed him. And then it's, like I said, it's really remarkably candid. I mean, he makes very few bones about it.
He also enters private business deals with these people who back him. You have reporting on him making $1 million on a private real estate transaction that involves a friend of his who also supports his campaign. This is a guy who's been on a government payroll most of his life for the Air Force and then into politics, and he's become very, very rich in his outside economic interests, hasn't he?
Exactly. I mean, it's quite striking. Like you said, he was a farmer and a rancher for the first few years of his career, working on his dad's farms and ranches, but then has been ever since a government employee, state legislator, agriculture commissioner, lieutenant governor, and he's now a very wealthy man. And the way he did it was mainly through these land deals. He had several very successful land deals, including one that I touch on in my piece in the New Republic, where he bought a small plot, third of an acre, I believe, at a resort outside Austin, bought it in 2001 or 2002, sold it 5 years later, had not built anything on this plot, sold it 5 years later for an $800,000 profit. The person who sold it to him for a remarkably low price was a state senator who's a friend of his. The person who bought it had been set up, the sale was partly set up by one of these major contributors of his. So it definitely has sort of a funny look to it.
Yeah, there is no honest way for a politician to get rich while in office, except maybe, and only maybe, through marriage. Alec MacGillis, senior editor of the New Republic, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Sure. Thanks for having me on.